All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? And the video I'm bringing you today, we are going to go over the spammable options for classes that don't have spammables or good spammables, namely stamp sort. Stamp sort does not have a class spammable, and so with the D-swing changes, a lot of people are looking at other spammable options to figure out if something else is better. This is going to be, I wouldn't say all-inclusive, but it's probably the best choices in my opinion, and we're going to compare them all and kind of look at them, what they do, and you guys can kind of make your decision and test out like what you kind of see as good next patch. And I'm going to tell you what I'm looking at as well after having tested everything. So with that being said, guys, let's dive into it. The first thing, we're going to go through the build as always, so you guys can kind of have an idea for what the tooltip damage is, so you know where it's at and whatever. But we're running Nirnhone Maul, Spriggans on the front bar, 3 jewelry, all weapon damage. We have Spriggan's Sword and Bore on the back bar to show a couple other skills. 2 Bloodspawn, 5 Fury. So it's a heavy 5-1-1 setup, all weapon damage. If we buff up with Rally, keep in mind this is with them all, 38, 83 weapon damage. So we have another 800 or 900 weapon damage coming in from Fury fully procced. So we do hit a lot harder than what this is going to show, but this will at least give us an idea for our tooltips for a very common build that people run quite a bit. So the first thing we're going to look at Crushing Weapon. Crushing Weapon is in the Psijic skill line. You have to have Somerset in order to get this, if I remember correctly. I can't remember if Somerset is free or not, but it's a Psijic skill line, so you have to grind up to get this. This is the Stamina Morph. Infuse your weapon with power, causing your next light attack used within 2 seconds to deal an additional 1,386 physical damage and heal you for 27% of the damage done. If the power is not consumed in time, you store 1,286 stamina. So, if you do not use this skill, you get a really nice return on it, so it costs next to nothing. It also heals you. It does pretty good damage. 10,386 buffed with Rally. With Fury procced, it'll be 11,000, 12,000 spammable, so it's not bad. So, with this skill, I'm going to do it in slow motion for you guys first so you can kind of get an idea, and then I'll show you like kind of how you cancel it or how I cancel it. I'm not the best with this skill, so hopefully I do it decently well. But when you activate the skill, it looks like that, and then within 2 seconds you have to activate a light attack to get it. So if you go like this, you see we get the proc, we have our enchantment, our light attack, and this. And so it's kind of nice for burst because you have everything lining up at the same time. So obviously this is an appealing option for Stamp Sorks, especially if you're going to run Bound Armaments, because your light attacks with Bound Armaments do 10% more damage. So since you will be light attacking with this specific skill, you get 10% more damage off it. It adds to your burst. So this is not a bad option. So you can animation cancel the LE weapon. You can block cancel the attack. And so it actually can function fairly smoothly. And so you see there, it just looks like I'm just kind of nudging him, and you see him just taking a shit ton of damage, and which is what it looks like, when it's not laggy. Now the problem with this specific thing, guys, is when it is laggy, light attacks don't always land. And so I sometimes have a hard time with this skill because I don't really see the animation, and so it feels a little clunky. Whereas with D-swing, when it's lagging, like you see somebody winding up a D-swing for fucking ages. It's coming at some point. You just have to keep lined up on it. So this is not a bad option for killing people, in my opinion. Like, it does a decent amount of damage. And like I said, even in lag, if it does miss, you get 1,286 stamina back. So it only costs like 800 or 900. It's not bad. And so it's a good tooltip damage. Little clunky to deal with. You do have to practice this quite a bit, but it does synergize very, very well with Bound Armaments. The other option would be Silver Shards. Silver Shards is in the Fighters Guild skill line. They changed this in Scalebreaker to now be the Spammable. And so this has a couple of buffs as well. So it does 10,054 damage, very similar to Elemental Weapon. Also, it is AoE, so anybody within the area, a 5-meter radius, takes 22% less damage. So your initial target takes 10k damage. Everybody around them takes about 8k damage. On top of that, because it's a Fighter's Guild skill, you get 3% more weapon damage for having it slotted, and so you get a little bit more burst with this on your bar. On top of that, you do 20% more damage to undead, Daedra, and werewolves. So if you're fighting somebody that's a vampire, this is going to hit 20% harder. And so it all of a sudden goes from 10k tooltip to roughly 12k versus vampires, so it's not bad. It also has a ridiculous range. It's 28 meters, and so you can hit people from a long ways away. Oh, my bad. From a long ways away with this skill, and it's obviously does a ton of damage. Now, as far as how it looks, if I activate the skill, it's just like that. If I block cancel it, it looks like that, and so you can block cancel it pretty well. However, what I find when I weave, if I'm going to do a full heavy attack and attempt to block cancel the skill. Sometimes it doesn't work properly, and so I end up getting the full animation for the crossbow anyways. And so I'm trying to heavy attack crossbow bash like that, and it doesn't always work. There we go. So yeah, so you can, there we go. So yeah, so you can bash cancel it as well, and so it's not bad. It's really not. It does, like I said, it does decent damage. You can obviously do a medium attack bash as well. Like you can do all that. I just like to weave in heavies, especially when I'm in heavy armor for the sustain. So that's up to you. And then finally the tried and true D-swing, which is, you know, it got nerfed in damage and it no longer CCs anymore. It does have a lot of buffs. And so if we compare D-swing versus these other skills, it's hitting roughly 30% harder than the other two spammables on our front bar. So 30% is quite a bit for a cast time. It also sets them off balance. And so off balance, you do roughly 7 to 8% more damage. So yeah, so 37 to 38% more damage with D-swing than with these other two skills. It costs a similar amount, the same amount of silver shards, slightly more than crushing weapon. I still think this is going to be probably the way to go, just because of the off balance proc and all of that. Now I'll dive into that in a minute. And then finally, other spammables on the back bar. If we buff up with Rally, you can absolutely run Deep Slash. Deep Slash does a decent amount of damage. We're going to have roughly a 10k tooltip with Deep Slash with Fury proc. And so Deep Slash is always weaved pretty well. And so if you bash cancel with it, it actually works out very well. And so that's not a bad skill. If you wanted to use the other higher tooltip damage, Power Slam is an amazing tooltip. So this is the other morph of reverberating bash. You can actually see with Power Slam, we do more damage with that than we do with crushing weapon or with silver shards. On top of that, while slotted, blocking any attack grants you a stack of resentment, which increases the damage of your next Power Slam by 5% for 5 seconds. This effect can stack up to 10 times. So you can do 50% more damage on a Power Slam if you block a bunch of attacks. So if you wanted to run Sword and Board and you pop Shield Ult when you're fighting severely outnumbered, this tooltip can shoot up to, what, 17k? So you can have a 17k tooltip on a Power Slam. That's pretty nuts. And so when we look at the skill, this is it in its entirety. It winds back and you bash it. You can block cancel it, and so block canceling it works pretty well. You can bash cancel it. Sometimes it does act up and it still does do the full animation, but it's good damage. It's good damage. It's a good option, especially when you're bash canceling. You know, on a Sword and Board bar, it makes a lot of sense to use this. Really, really good tooltip. It's kind of overlooked because it does feel a little clunky. But yeah, I would probably, if I was going Sword and Board, I would probably go with Power Slam over Deep Slash. That's just my personal preference. But yeah, for me, I'll probably still stick with D-Swing, guys. And so, I'll show you why. But if we switch to my normal, or what I normally kind of run on my Stam Sorc, I'll show you guys kind of what I'm looking at as far as like skills in my bar go and everything. So we'll go like that. Go like that. We'll go to our front bar here. And I'm not saying this is perfect, guys. Obviously, this is untested, and so we have to just kind of look and see how things are going to work out. So this is going to be the first thing I test. So this is a very similar setup to what I normally run. I did take off Blood Craze because I want to fit the new Bound Armaments. Bound Armaments, if you didn't see my previous video, it buffs, gives us 8% more max stamina, so we're going to hit harder. It also buffs our light attacks by 10%, which, like I said, is pretty nice. But now we have a 13-7 tooltip D-swing before Fury proc, so this is going to jump up to about 15k. With Spriggans, that's pretty damn good. It doesn't CC anymore, but what it does do is it gives off balance. So when somebody's off balance, guys, if you wind a few of these up and you say, like, let's say we get them to about half health, what we can do, anything over a light attack, what's going to happen is, like, you have your pure light attack, which is just literally that. Anything more than that, anything like that, anything like that, anything like this, like anything over just an absolute light attack, when somebody's off balance, they will be stunned and put on the ground. So we can utilize our stun off of our light attack instead of off our D-swing. And so if we're fighting somebody and they're chunkier, like 35k health, and and they're super chunky, so we're only hitting them for like 5k, right? So we do a heavy attack D-swing, our dots are wearing on them. And now they're at about 15k health. They're off balance. We could do a heavy attack to stun them, drop our Dawnbreaker, and then we could start reverse slicing. So that's probably going to be what I'm going to look at. It's going to synergize pretty well with the follow-up passive. Fully charged heavy attack, your next direct damage attack used within 7 seconds deals an additional 10% damage. So against people that don't really know how off balance works, you can absolutely line up a full heavy, get 10% more damage on your ultimate, and hit a little bit harder. For players that know what they're doing, you're not always going to be able to get a full heavy off. You know, they're not always going to see it coming. So you might just want to just do like a medium-sized heavy attack and then drop the ult. So that's what I'm going to look at first. If for whatever reason that's not as reliable as I want it to be, like let's say it's just not working, and I can't get the stun the way I want it to work because, you know, for whatever reason, like lag's not allowing me to, or my poor gameplay is not allowing me to, whatever, I'll probably go to something like this. So what I would do is I would take off. I know it's sacrilege to take off that skill, but you can obviously flex it somewhere else if you need to. But I would just take off a skill, and I would put Turn Evil on. Turn Evil has a lot of benefits. It gives you minor protection while you're in the area. It goes through block, and so it's going to be a little bit more reliable. You can D-swing, you can D-swing, you can D-swing, and you can guarantee, even against block casters, that you can fear them with this and then drop your ult. And so it's always going to land through their block. You CC them, you drop your ult, it's going to land. And so you also, because it's a Fighter's Guild skill, you get to have 3% weapon damage on your bar for having it. Like I said, minor protection for having it. It is great, great skill. Those are the two routes I'm going to look at. So I'm going to try and utilize D-swing by using the off balance and proccing the off balance, and then anything, if I want to go in for the stun, maybe I do a partially charged heavy with an ult, or just the stun plus an execute. Like, it's going to take some practice. This is not what people are used to. I totally get that. That's why we have Turn Evil here, just in case people can't get the hang of that, or it's just not landing properly. So that's the route I'm going to go. I'm going to stick with D-swing. It just does, like I said, it does 30% more damage. 35, 37%, especially with off balance. It's like 37, 36%, something like that. It's just way too much damage to pass up, in my opinion, even with the cast time, even without the CC. So those are the two options I'm looking at. I'm not saying that it's best. Obviously, we have a lot of testing to do. 1vx situation is completely different than hitting a test dummy, so I'm providing that caveat for you. Which of these spambles look good for you guys? Like, which one do you think you're going to choose? What route are you going to start with? Obviously, what we start with is not what we end up with, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.